worried about pitchforks. I'm just going to take a photo just in case the police do come and I've been killed. Thank you. Got all the people who might want to kill me by the end of this. My name's David Rudduck. This is Benjamin DeMarco and Dean Ellis. Apparently my name is the only one on the title. Welcome along to How to Replace Your People with AI. The agenda for today, it's not about replacing people. That's actually not it at all. We're going to go through a bit of a reality check, talking about what's happening, what's changing. Talk about from a practical perspective. I'm hearing myself. Then we're going to talk about the guardrails and the regulatory aspect of it. And then we'll focus on the elephant in the room. I actually wanted an elephant costume to come in, but couldn't find one.
I was going to try and do the elephant noise, and I was like, no, you'll butcher it.
Anyway. So yeah, as I said, my name's David Rudduck. I ran a cybersecurity company for 25 years. We were acquired by a global insurer. Done a whole heap of other stuff. Biggest thing for me is actually people and culture, believe it or not. And I'm now Vice Chair for the Queensland Australian Computer Society branch and also Chair for the ACS AI Technical Advisory Board, along with my compadre here, Ben, who's Vice Chair.
Thank you, David. For those of you who don't know me, my background has traditionally been as a lawyer. Where I work now is a mix of insurance, risk advisory, governance. Similar to David, do a lot of work across the industry, and really the perspective that I want to bring to you today is what's happening not just in the regulatory space, but how do we see companies trying to juggle governance, risk, and ultimately the assurance issues.
Hands up if you guys know me from LinkedIn. Dean with a rainbow, fantastic, that's me. I'm the Rabbitohs guy on LinkedIn. My background, I was actually a mechanical engineer and fell into systems engineering, and I found my people. I really found my people in the tech space and decided after, 12 years in the industry, no one could find me staff. So I decided to take a leap of faith and I became a technical recruiter. I now own Rec for Tech. We're a bespoke or a boutique recruitment agency for MSPs and MSSPs based here on the Gold Coast. And I do people and culture as a service. So not only do I find my client staff, I then act as their people and culture manager so we can keep those staff employed in the business and happy. So that's me.
Yeah, last year, Dean was good enough at the last moment to jump in on a talk that two other people unfortunately couldn't do, and we did a talk on people and culture as well, which was actually really awesome. So, the journey ahead. There's three phases of where we are. There's the now, there's what's going to happen, and for some businesses, some countries, that's already happening, and then there's the future. The change will be disruptive. There's no doubt about that. The road is going to get bumpy. How long and how bumpy it is depends on us. And our talk today is about helping navigate through the change. What happens after that, I have no idea. People tell me I'm really, really worried about the future of jobs and opportunities for my children. I'm like, fuck that, they're going to be in outer space and doing things that I can only dream about. But we all have to work together to get there. So let's have a look at it from a practical perspective. And I want you to think about your people properly. There are certain aspects of what we do every day that I think if it ever is replaceable by AI, or robots, or alien invaders, lizards, it's not going to happen. And, you know, many of us may be introverts, autistic, shy, whatever, and think, oh, but I don't want to be at the front. You all wouldn't be here at a physical conference if you didn't like other people. And the truth is, we all love people. We all would love to be spending more time with people, but we spend so much time doing mundane shit. The framework I want you guys to really focus on as AI is rolled out in your business is keep the expert in the process. We're not giving things to AI so that it can do it itself. and then wondering why things go wrong, you need an expert, and all of your people are the experts. Help them do it, and Dean will cover this more later, do it with transparency. It's not like Amazon driving their delivery vans around with glasses on. No, we're just doing this to improve quality. Their intention is to replace those people. Do it with openness and honesty, and help them get back time. I spoke a little while ago at an event and said, if you've got loved ones in aged care, how much of their time do you think they spend with those loved ones versus doing paperwork, compliance, blah, blah, blah? Is it more than 50% of their time with your loved ones or less? Obviously the answer is more. Well, what if it could be more? So an example of something that I built was a breach assessment platform, and we looked at the huge amount of time that it took to manually review all these things, and we built ongoing little steps of automation, AI, ML, but there was always a human in the loop. There was always an expert in the loop. There were escalation processes, things fell out. And so you've also got to look at what is ready and what's not. And also what maybe never will be. And Ben will talk to the point of, if you're going to put your name on it or the business brand on it, it can't be AI as the final step. The other thing I want you to think about are microprocesses. And the example I have here, as cute as it may be, is about my son. When he was first feeding from a bottle, one day he picked up the bottle, he put it into his mouth, and he did this over and over again. Wasn't drinking it, just practiced putting it in his mouth. And I spoke to my brother. I said, it's like training a large language model. And he said, you're such a nerd. The next day, he picked up the bottle, put it in his mouth. We forget all of these little microprocesses. It's why we don't write out processes for our juniors. But you can't expect a junior or an AI to get things right if you don't go to that level of detail. And the main thing from my perspective is net human benefit. Instead of replacing people by AI, how are you giving people back time? How are you allowing them to connect with each other? If your salespeople could spend 4 times the amount of time with each prospect and customer, what would that value create? No salesperson I know likes keying in data into the CRM. This is just a very brief slide I've been trying to find because everyone asks me various AI training resources. It obviously depends on the role. These are a couple that I've paid for and used. Take them for what they are.
Thank you, David. So for the next section, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's been changing, not just in the risk and legal space, but how we see organisations trying to manage all the pressures from AI. You'll notice a theme with these slides. There's lots of content here. We've probably got 2 or 3 presentations that we're going to try and squiz through. And the bit I wanted to focus on was, rather getting bogged down in the detail, what are the thematic issues that I think are kind of moving the dial? And the bit we've started with here is this idea of, 2025 to 2026, what are the big things that you should be aware of? I think the first thing I want you to be aware of is that privacy is one of the primary guises that we're using to scrutinise AI. It's viewed as a high-risk technology within privacy circles. We have reforms coming in the Privacy Act that require you to document what you're doing with automated decision-making. And ultimately, what we see regulators do and how we're managing that from that perspective will impact not just data subjects, but what do we think about AI assurance generally. The next thing that's really interesting is what's happening in the contract space. You've got guidance now from the Digital Transformation Authority, a number of other different bodies, talking about some of the problems and challenges that you should use. I'm going to come back to this a few times, but the thing about contracts are, it is fundamentally a tech contract. All of the horrible things we've been learning about what to do with tech contracts and cyber contracts, that applies to what we should be doing with AI. And I've given you some examples here of some of the problems. I'll just focus on the first idea. So what are we going to approve the AI for? What's the quality assurance? And what's actually happening with the AI system? Basic fact-finding questions, but you'd be amazed how many people don't do that, and you can't retrofit it after the fact. Data risk, I just want to mention 2 interesting cases that are going on at the moment. So one deals with a situation where someone got Claude to summarise a whole bunch of different pieces of information for a criminal investigation. Everything that was summarised, the Claude outputs, they're disclosable. So this notion of what we put into AI, how it gets used and the trust we do, Just because it's a black box doesn't mean there's legal immunity or privilege, and ultimately those are things that a lot of organisations don't account for. Similar issues also in MUNIA, which you can read yourself. And last thing I'll mention on this slide is IP risk. So fundamentally, what's happened with IP is we haven't solved the issues around IP ownership, what happens with the data scraping, the corpus, etc. But I've given you a really interesting case where a whole bunch of copyright holders are going after OpenAI. And one of the things they've got is they've got 20 million de-identified chats that OpenAI has had to produce in the course of responding to disclosure inquiries. That shows you the amount of data OpenAI is holding, all of the attachments, all of those materials, and ultimately all of this IP that we're trusting with these AI systems. At some point there has to be a reckoning there. Next slide. I also wanted to talk about where we might go in the next 12 months, and there are two cases that I've been following that I think are really interesting. Both of these are in the US. You can read about them yourselves, but just firstly in Nippon Life, it was an insurer. It had a deed of settlement agreed with the claimant. The claimant then started asking OpenAI for a whole bunch of different guidance. It encouraged it to breach the deed, to file a whole bunch of vexatious litigations, and also by extension to frustrate the process. It's being sued, basically looking at what OpenAI was doing, the legal advice it was doing, and essentially a situation where a technology service was acting in the course of providing specialised guidance that normally you can only do when you've got a practicing certificate. If you've heard about the character technology litigations, these are chatbots. In the case of this particular matter here, it encouraged the individual to commit suicide, but there's a huge amount of dispute around in the litigation, not just the frameworks, but the lack of disclosure of product safety and the lack of information around all of the harms. So this just shows you some of the issues that we've got to deal with advice, but also the lack of knowledge around risks. Next one. I'm going to deal with this slide very, very quickly, but the question that comes up all the time is what happens when AI gets it wrong? People constantly misstate this. They've got a whole bunch of assumptions that aren't correct. The things I want to hit out is the AI is a tech product you consume under a contract. If you ever read the service agreements, huge amounts of restrictions, waiver of liability. Also, most of them include requirements that you should be reviewing an AI output manually, which tells you about the level of confidence you should have. Negligence, there's a huge amount of information around the fact that AI hallucinates, it confabulates, it doesn't understand context. So the notion that you can use it and not expect there to be a negligence issue at the back is a problem. Also, anyone who tells you that agentic is going to solve it, it's nonsense. Agentic is still just a tech product. It has no legal personality. You as the deployer, you as the user of AI ultimately have those exposures. And there are some examples here of how to stay out of the headlines, but you can read them yourself later on. Next one. I thought I'd just give you just a couple of steps that I see people making mistakes with and that I would recommend you using as a starting point. Visibility, I think, is still a huge problem with AI. That's not just what users are doing within the organisation, but there is no walled garden for AI. It's on every device. It's obviously constantly there. It's embedded in a whole bunch of products. If you're not thinking about shadow AI, derivative AI and other uses, your AI strategy is never going to work. Secondly, AI gets bundled as this one singular concept, but ultimately it's about what's the risk from the process, what's the risk from the output. And the idea is for a lot of businesses, we've got really good processes for assessing risk. It could be through BIAs, it could be through different collaborations, it could be through different meetings between teams. We need to bring that risk assessment framework to AI, and we need to understand the high risk and the high exposures. I've given you some examples of some of the contractual clauses that often get missed. The one I'll focus on is intended use and statement of requirements. If you don't have that embedded at the start of an AI process, you're kind of just spinning and just hoping that you won't fall over. Data governance, everything about AI tends to come back to data. How did we get it? How did we collect it? Where did we store it? How will it be used? If you're getting those fundamentals right, you can leverage a lot of things for safe AI. And the last one, which is becoming very topical, is the idea of what happens when AI goes wrong. So for example, we now know about a whole bunch of different test cases where models could be poisoned. We know about issues with drift. We know how AI is cyber, which has been a big topic today. You need to talk about that within your teams, within executives, that we should be doing testing. We should be doing analysis for all of those things. And over to you.
Yeah, nice, Ben. Thanks a lot. The one thing I keep hearing from our staff, well, your staff, they're all calling me because they're really scared. They're worried. I don't think they're really worried about AI, but they're worried about maintaining relevance within our industry. And I can tell you right now, we've been through these iterations multiple times where something impactful's happened and we've had to adapt. GFC, look, I joined the channel just after the GFC. Those that survived were adaptable people. They pushed through, they made it. Then we had COVID most recently. I remember that COVID really made our industry really sexy again. Like we were no longer, the schoolyard geeks anymore. We had increased salaries. We had businesses that really wanted to employ us. And people wanted to marry us, right? Remember this?
Yeah.
It made us really relevant again. Right now we're going through a scenario where your staff, or everyone's staff in the industry, are calling me and they're saying, Dean, like, should I reskill? Should I get out of the industry? What's next for me? What if I can't keep up? So as business leaders, we can do one thing really simply. Start communicating with our staff, okay? I literally sit there in boardrooms with leadership teams to tell them, open your mouth, have conversations. You've told me 12 months ago that you're going to bring AI into the business. You need to be communicating that with your staff members up front, so you're the one that's leading the narrative. I really think that we've spent, 10 years educating people to come into our industry. So when someone's in year 9, we're influencing those people to join our industry. We're communicating. We've got ACS that goes to schools. They've got a GIST program which goes into schools to teach people that are moving to their year 11 and 12, selecting their electives, that they should come into tech. So from that time, all the way through university, their first, 12 months in the industry, all of a sudden, they're the people that are thinking that maybe they'll leave and they'll move to another industry. Next slide for me. As I mentioned before, we need to communicate. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom. We can make it less scary for our staff. We can make this more profitable and even a little bit fun. But as leaders, I really think that we can be the people that equipped our staff to be the best in the industry. If we're augmenting our staff, so we're allowing them to learn and develop their skills with AI, and we're the ones that are pushing them to do it, getting them on the certifications or the courses that Dave just showed before, they'll be the ones that start to push the boundaries of what we can do within the industry. I don't want our staff to be making up their own narrative anymore. So if you can own that narrative by getting on the front foot and having a conversation, you're going to be the person that they keep coming back to. You'll retain your staff as well. And they won't be thinking, I'm in fear, I'm worried about my job. There's some really easy things that we can do in the industry to support our staff. And I do believe that when I joined, we started as an intern and we went to level 1, level 2, level 3, right? That was the old way of doing things. I think now we need to be looking at it as intern or level 1, and we start to augment our staff. We give them tools. We allow them to play in sandbox environments and actually give them time in your diary, 4 hours a week. One of our partners is doing, I think they said that it's a guaranteed 8 hours a week that they want their staff to be educating themselves. They want them to be teaching each other. So they actually set up brown bag sessions. So on a Friday afternoon, the last sort of 2 hours of the afternoon, actively each staff member will take everyone through what they're doing with AI, how they're making a difference. One of our partners has actually stopped employing level 1s because 2 years ago they started this process. And they started really pushing the education piece. Every 2 certifications that a staff member got within the AI space, or they finished a course within the AI space, they would bump their salary by, I think it was about $2,000. And I know that costs us as a business, but it is pushing those employees to do better. Actually, funny enough, when I talk about these augmented staff members, we've always had a value placed on, say, time in a business or time in industry. And that's why we select someone to join our business. One of our partners, actually, Solus. Your old company. We were doing a double recruit for them. They wanted 2 senior SOC analysts. We found some great people from CrowdStrike, other vendors around the country. But I met this young fellow who'd only been in the industry for 3 years. And he blew my mind. When I was talking about his home lab, like how excited he got around the difference he felt that he could make in the industry, I went to Julie and said, hey, you've got to meet this guy. I know he's not the brief that you gave me, but I really think the capability that he'll bring to your organisation through, DevSecOps is really where you need to be putting your focus. They met the young guy. He starts next week. Now, Julie also saved a bit of money on that recruit, right? Because he was a level 2, but he was augmented. He's bringing more capability. Next slide for me, thanks. And he's actually going to really change the way that the SOC works, I believe.
And he'll also be super loyal because of the opportunity he was given. 100%.
Well, that's exactly what he was telling me. He goes, I know that I'm not what you had printed on your LinkedIn page. He goes, but I really think that I can do most of the things that are in that position description, but I can do all these other things as well. Like I can really bring some automation to the team. So I'm looking forward to seeing the next 12 months on how he performs. Look, we're sort of moving into a new normal now. I know I spoke a little bit about changing the way that we value people. That young fellow was just one example of not looking at years within the industry, but looking at the impact that these people can bring to our industry and our businesses. I don't think that we should be counting stuff like ticket numbers closed, right? As in, that can be done by AI. You know, I was looking at a system the other day. I think it was called PIA, and they've really started to do a lot within the automation space to close out tickets that, I know, normally a level 1 would sit there and do.
I was actually going to say, I think this is a really good opportunity to disrupt KPIs. Consulting businesses will have to start selling on value, not hours. The old KPIs are crap, and they don't produce the results we think they do. So,
I've heard organisations push back on, say, businesses like KPMG saying, we're not going to pay you the 50 grand, or we don't want to pay you the 50 grand because we know you're using AI. Still, if the product is fit for purpose, shouldn't it still be the same value?
what if the customer is so happy, they are so sticky and they keep buying more? What's more important, the tickets or a happy customer? Like,
happy end users, they're the ones that pay our bills, right? So I'm going to leave you with this. The next slide that I bring up, I really want you all to take a photo of, and that's going to be all the key takeaways that I would usually present in an hour-long session.
he forced me to put this in. I hate decks full of words.
I just think that
Death
this
by
one's
PowerPoint.
something you can keep aside, and there's actionable outcomes here. And the big thing that I notice when I'm speaking to business leaders is like, this is going to cost me money, and that's okay. You can make it cheap, right? You can do brown bags on lunch hour. You can bring in
Lunch and learn?
Lunch and learn, sorry,
There you
that's
go.
it. Brown bags. Lunch and learn, you're right. I think this will separate you in the industry. If you can just start to move the needle 1% with your staff, they'll stay with you.
And I'll go a little bit further. I said this in the tutorial we ran on Wednesday with Leah and Anthony. This is as important to your staff as learning how to use a typewriter was, as learning how to use a computer was, as learning how to use a word processor, a spreadsheet. It shouldn't be something you're going to bring in external resources to build out the whole thing and maintain, because that will put people out of a job. Sure, bring in experts and help uplift, train, but invest in your people.
Definitely invest in your people and communicate. Number 4, I think, is the first one you need to do. You really need to be communicating with your staff if you think you're going to bring in AI, so they're not making up that narrative in their head again.
Ask them how to bring it in.
Get them on board. Get them to help you bring it in.
You talk about test environments and stuff, and even from the GRC perspective, like, this is a chance to be super collaborative, and any business who says, I'm going to replace all my staff with AI, you've just become replaceable yourself, because your people are your best value, and people work with people who they know, like, and trust. Not
Bots.
Yeah.
Look, one of our partners said to me the other day, he was giving me a job brief, and he goes, you know what, I've been building this bot, I've been doing it for months, and I think I'm going to bring it to our people, and we're not going to hire any level 1s. And I was like, whoa, have you told anyone? He goes, no, you're the first. I was like, oh, no, that's a big mistake. I can't be the first. Your staff need to be the first. Get them on a journey. Get them to help you build the bot, so they're learning through the process as well. He's going to do it, by the way. He's going to sit down with the staff and show them what he's built, and then get them to start pushing the boundaries with it.
So we've intentionally left a bit of time here because we figured there'd be a bit of questions. Well, I hope there's questions. I hate when there's no questions. But we do have some key takeaways. And like I said, embrace it, but look at it from a perspective of, how do I give my people more time to be people by automating the shit out of the stuff that's so boring and probably insurance-based. But obviously do it where you're actually checking as well. It has to be validated, just like you would if you brought in a postgrad, a junior, whatever else, because as Ben will follow up with, you're setting yourself up for failure.
And just to echo that, a couple of key things to take away: keep it simple, but ultimately stop treating AI as some bizarre black box. The discussions within the teams, the discussions within business about what you want to do, how it's going to be used, what its limitations are. As soon as you start to demystify it, you can actually have productive conversations. We've talked a lot about upskilling. The more people know about it, the more they understand about it. They understand the limitations. They will be a little more comfortable with their role and what they're going to do, but also they can manage the risks when something goes wrong at 2 a.m. And lastly, I think the key thing for all of this is to keep our sanity. You can spend every hour of every single day reading about what AI may or may not be, what mythos may or may not be. Ignore the lawyers. There are a couple of thematic things you have to think about, and that's normally what is your business potentially looking to do, what will the impacts be, and in my case from the risk side, what are regulators and what are government looking at. If you keep your narrow banding, then you can actually keep your sanity.
I like that, keep sanity, that's brilliant. From my side of things, I say, just have one conversation about AI. If you want to bring it in, start talking to your staff. It's okay if the role description is going to change. Tell them it's going to change, how it's going to change, and how you'll support them into the future, into a new role within your company.
Yeah, and like we said at the start, I mean, the reality is we are going through, as far as I'm concerned, you can argue with us as much as you want, this is the next industrial revolution. We've had the agricultural, industrial, et cetera, except for it's just being done at such a pace that most people can't keep up with. And, you know, recursive self-improvement is already happening. They're putting data centers in space and on the moon and all of these other things. Quantum computers. I was talking to someone else before that, you know, if we get all of these dominoes in a row flicking over at once, shit's going to get real fast. But it's up to us to navigate this in a way that is people-focused and come out the other side. Like, even the transition of training this stuff is a point-in-time exercise. It won't last forever. Any questions?
I did see some questions.
Thank you very much for this presentation. We've got Dave here who'll run around for the questions, and we have a few little thank you gifts for you.
Oh, amazing. Thank you very much.
First question over here.
So, question around, I guess, the recruitment side as like an employee and an employer. What I've seen is an increase in the use of large language models to generate absolutely flawless and spotless CVs and resumes and all of that. I guess two questions. One, from an employee perspective or a prospective candidate, how can you stand out above essentially all of those other superior polished resumes? And from a recruiter perspective, how do you then sift the wheat from the chaff?
Give me 1 second, because this is why I never read resumes, because people make shit up. I'm more interested in the person, but yeah.
Yeah, effectively, okay, let's look at it from the employee perspective. For you to stand out, it's not about the resume. Yes, I think cover letters and resumes are really important to hit key criteria that's required. If you haven't got the key criteria, do not lie. Do not chuck in the position description into that Claude and ask it to synthesize your CV. You will be found out. If you're coming through me, I'll be asking you about every point. And as soon as I hear this waver in the voice, I'm like, wow, that guy just lied to me. How horrible that I just wasted 15 minutes. Here's a do not use. I won't speak to that person again, right? And it's pretty cutthroat. We only work with the top 10% of the industry when it comes to candidates. But to stand out, make a phone call. Call the business. Ask if you can speak to the hiring manager and you've got a couple of questions about the organisation or the role. Even if they don't come back to you, or you get stopped by the receptionist, your name will get put in front of that person, they'll go straight to your CV, right? Cover letters, I think, are genius. I read them before a CV. From an employer's perspective, look for the big elephant in the room, the word adept. Like, who actually uses that word, right? You know, M-dashes, who even knew that they were around before ChatGPT started? Like, look for inconsistencies and timelines inconsistencies, but spend your time more so on the phone screen than you do the interview. So more time on phone screening than you do interviews is totally fine. You'll get everything you need relatively quick and you can wrap up a phone call pretty quickly. As soon as I know that they're in the shortlist, I'll quickly call, hey, let's have a chat, see how they go. Does that help?
Can I just
Thank you, Dean. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, can I just
I
add
was just
one-
saying, be authentic. Be yourself.
Can I
I've got a
add one
question
thing?
down here.
So just before that, we recently did a hire and you could tell the CVs that had been done through AI, they all sound the same, they all look the same. None of them went through to second round. So I don't think it's the be all and end all. It's useful as a proofing tool, but the ones who just use it, you can still spot them a mile away.
Thank you.
Sorry.
One more question up here.
With people who are leaving school and wanting, to have a career in cybersecurity, often the level 1 was the way you actually start getting your career in place, and with you pretty much going, yep, people getting rid of level 1, it pretty much then kills the capability of people who have not got experience, want to get experience, can't get into the field. And so how do you help, fill that gap?
Again, I'm going to jump in first, only because whilst AI is the scapegoat at the moment, we were doing this with offshoring previously. Accountancy firms, law firms, etc., have been offshoring all of those basic things, and this problem's been around for a while. What I would say is humanity has always made simple things that are complex, which also makes it more complex, and then elevated to the next level. So level 1, as we know it, probably will go away. But what was the next level up becomes the first level. And I think we've got to start thinking about change, chasing the, finding the cheese in the maze. It is moving. However, our industry sucks when it comes to industry placement, career opportunities out of university and all the rest of it. We've got a bigger problem that we need to deal with there first. But I think the problem is that it's just moving. And we just need to accept that. My kids will be smarter than us. That's it.
I do agree. Our industry is really bad at bringing entry-level students in, or those coming, internships are disappearing, right? As in, it's actually happening. If they can skill themselves up in their own time, home labs, separating themselves from the kids that didn't, or the students that didn't, they can present that in project work on a CV. I love project work. As soon as I hear someone say they've got a home lab, I'm like, wow, I'm giving that person a call. I want to know what you're doing, because now I know you're actually invested in the industry. You didn't just choose to be a cybersecurity analyst because it was sexy again, and you knew you were going to get 100K a year in your first year. I know that you actually care. So I do think your personal projects at home, at school, are really important for you to be able to position yourself. Again, they should be picking up the phone and calling the recruiter or the business leader and explaining what they've done. And I know it's hard because a lot of us are introverts. Maybe getting some coaching on that as well.
Well, thank you very much.
Can I just add one thing there? We were doing a lecture yesterday and had 150 uni students, and that question actually came up at the end. And the 3 things that we suggested to them were, firstly, the industry groups, the associations, the stuff you do on the side. Ultimately, you're in a competitive race with your peers. What does your CV look like to make it different? The second thing was that interest, passion makes a huge difference in this space. The reality of what you're taught with cyber and what it is are very, very different, so we want to get to those things. And the third thing is you need to make the business want to work with you. So the stuff around the soft skills, the stuff around engagement, an interview is your persuasion piece to make the business decide that it wants to invest in you. And if you go through that, you'll get a better outcome.
Thank you, Ben. Let's give another round of applause for David, Dean and Ben. Thank you very much for your time today.